everyone, and welcome back to my studio. In this speed paint, you'll be watching the process of my piece for the YouTube Artist Collective's theme of vintage. Now, these two posters created by Alphonse Mica are kind of the primary inspirations. I use the job poster on the left, which is actually an advertisement for cigarette rolling papers, to inspire the main concept, and the poster on the right was actually used to reference the pose. Now, as far as concept goes, I've never known anyone who rolled their cigarettes, but I've always really loved the look of vintage pipes. And while doing my research on vintage pipes and pipe paraphernalia and smoking paraphernalia, I came across these really beautifully creative glass pipes used for smoking weed. After going further and doing even more research, I came across Operation Pipe Dreams, which was a nationwide investigation that took place in 2003, targeting businesses that sold drug paraphernalia, primarily pipes and bongs. After hundreds of homes and businesses were raided, during the over $12 million investigation, only 55 people were actually charged. All but one were sentenced to relatively small fines and house arrest. The exception in this case being well-known comedian and actor Tommy Chong. Tommy Chong was not only sentenced to 9 months in federal prison and a year of probation, he was also fined $20,000 and was forced to forfeit $103,000 acquired from his entirely legitimate businesses, Chong Glassworks and Nice Dreams. Even the federal prosecution admitted to being harsher on Chong, citing that his movies trivialize law enforcement's efforts to combat drug trafficking and use. Personally, I think the $12 million would have been better used towards stopping the use of real drugs like, I don't know, cocaine or meth or hell, cigarettes. But I'd love to hear what you guys think. Do you think Tommy Chong's punishment was appropriate? Or do you think that law enforcement overstepped their bounds and wasted tons of money? I'm dying to know what you guys think, so let me know in the comments below. Now, for the color palette of this piece, I wanted to keep it very cool and of course vibrant. I noticed with a lot of the vintage Alphonse Mica posters, the colors were very warm, and it's probably due to just the age of the ones that are available now. The colors are very subdued and yellowed. So I wanted to have a much more cool tone. You guys probably have realized by now, if you've been watching and following along with my pieces thus far, I really love blue, purple, and green. So being that this is kind of my first painting of 2019, I let myself indulge and just went ahead with the very cool tone. Like with every piece, it's very important to preserve the values of each piece, so I used the masking fluid to preserve the whites, and then I went in with the very lightest colors, which would be her hair at this point, and then from there I go into the background of the painting, which turns out to be some of the darkest area. By doing this, it allowed me to make sure that I was keeping the values where I wanted to in between. I'm sure someone out there will say that I use galaxies way too much in my paintings, but I really don't care because I love doing this part of a painting. When I let the watercolor really just mesh and blend and do what watercolor is really great at doing, it's just really satisfying. It also kind of means that I have to let go of a lot of the control that I like to have in my paintings and just let the colors flow into each other. I also think that considering the very dreamy and whimsical kind of vibe of this painting, that the galaxy background actually works perfectly. At this point, I'm using the incredible nib to remove the masking fluid. You can basically do the exact same thing with a wood stick that has a little bit of masking fluid on it to begin with, and it'll help you remove your masking fluid really quickly. And then I just like to go in and double check the page to make sure that there are no tiny bits of masking fluid left on the sheet, because you don't want to start painting and then realize you've missed a whole section. And here is where I finally go in with some inked line work. I am using a size 02 Micron pen, and I'm keeping the lines relatively fine now, and then I go in and darken the border a bit later. And although it's not necessarily characteristic of Alphonse Mucha's style, I tried to go in and do a little bit of rim lighting in her skin for this one. And rim lighting is basically just leaving kind of that bright light along the edge to match where the lighting would be coming from. So in this universe, I imagine a bright white light coming from the moon behind her and to the left, and then a more green light coming from the marijuana leaf to her right. I'm not entirely sure that I achieved this in the best way, but the point was to make her look like she was actually in her surroundings, and I really like the outcome. It was also really important to make sure that I was layering colors in the correct order. So here I'm actually putting the gold netting for her stockings over the first layer of the red glass, just because I wanted to make sure you could still kind of see it after I put on all the different layers of like red and maroon for that glass. And speaking of the glass bowl of this piece, I was really happy with the way that it turned out. I think this may be the first time that I rendered glass and it looked the way that I intended it to when I was done. This piece also ended up being much more mixed media than I had initially thought it was going to be. So most of the white that I'm adding on top of the watercolor is the Rowney white ink. A little later you'll see as I try and go in with a white charcoal pencil and some white soft pastel. I'm trying to add a little halo or glow around the moon, but that comes a little later. Fun rendering this little weed leaf. I'm sure there's a botanist out there who is just cringing at my depiction of it, but I think it came out pretty good. I also tried to keep that area where the moon would be a little brighter so it looked like the light was shining through the leaf. Lastly, with most of the interior painting done, I remove the tape and start working on the border using my Finetec Mica watercolor palette. I decided to go in with the lightest gold, which was right next to the silver in the palette, so it maintains that nice cool feeling in the painting throughout. So this is where that white charcoal pencil and white pastel come in. As I mentioned, there's a lot of different materials used, so I'll be sure to add the full list of materials in the description below. But feel free to ask any questions. This is kind of the first time I'm using this technique, and I saw it in a video, I don't remember where, but it definitely works. It gave me the outcome that I wanted, which was a glow coming from that moment. And it's actually been a really long time since I've tried to use white gel pens, and I have a bunch of them. It didn't work for me before, and it didn't work for me for this painting either, so I had to kind of work my way around it. Since this painting was practically finished, I didn't want to take a chance on splattering white ink everywhere to create the stars in the background. So I ended up using the pen more like an applicator, and I just dipped it into the cap of my ink bottle and used it kind of just like a small inkwell. That way I could create perfect round dots, and I didn't have to worry about getting ink in places that I didn't want it. I also went in with a detail brush to add the little starbursts. The very last thing to do for this painting was to add in the logo and do the last bits of line work. In the end, I could not be more happy with the turnout for this piece. I like to imagine that it would be the perfect poster advertisement for Operation Pipe Dreams, a company that sells hand-blown glass pipes with a vintage flair. If you haven't already done so, don't forget to check out the YouTube Artist Collective. Again, the prompt that was chosen was the inspiration for this painting. That prompt was vintage this time around, but if you go to their Facebook page, you can actually vote on what will be the next inspiration for the next selection of videos. The YouTube Artist Collective is a group of artists that come together and all work on, the same prompt, and you get to see so many different ideas and visualizations of the same concept from many different people. So I'll try to add a link for all the different ones that I can find in the description below, and I hope that you guys check them out, and I hope you continue to check out my videos as well. As always, I just want to say thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my process. If you haven't already done so, please don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that bell so you get notifications for whenever I post a video. You know I love to see your comments, so don't be shy. Stay tuned, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye!